It's Clear Channel is going to fund that up front. We're responsible for up to $75,000 of that portion, and that there's no out-of-pocket expense to the city. That'll come off our monthly revenue for the first 10 years of the lease, roughly a little over $600.
And I think we have a slide coming up on this, so can we just, we'll limit this conversation, please, and go back to where we're at on the, thank you.
This is the recommended design of the sign. This came actually from Michael Leone, a very talented city employee who was in design work and did this. A couple of changes that have occurred. The sign size is limited to 14 by 48, which is the standard size for most of the digital billboards that you see throughout the whole United States. That's the standard size. This is kind of a super size, but we're not doing that. The state law sort of precluded us from doing anything greater than 14 by 48. The height of the sign at the Park and Ride site, this is 80 feet because it's down in a drainage area. The one at the Bullard Wash is 60 feet in height. So those are the two, approximately, that'll be the two height of the signs.
I have a question on this, and I've made this complaint before. Our city sign that is on Wigwam and Litchfield, this base part is discolored. It's got white on it of some sort. I thought they were slate. See, I didn't realize that someone said they're metal.
They're Corten.
And so, you know, I'm thinking, oh, you just oil it and that'll go away. Well, nothing's ever been done, and that concerns me. I mean, if you go look at it and you compare it to some of the other signs, which I'm not sure anybody's done, and I have put this complaint through many times, it's just something that bugs me when I drive by it. I wouldn't want that same thing happening to such a large structure, that I would want to be assured that the look stays as quality as when they first put it up. So whether that takes some kind of wash on it or whatever, I would like. Okay, next question. Wally?
Okay, my question is regarding the color of the sign. You and I have had this conversation before, Harvey, and I shared pictures with you of some digital, or not digital, maybe they were large pylon signs from Surprise. And the artistic look to them compared to this one. I'm concerned with the brown color. It's going to fade into the desert, and it's going to fade, and it's not going to look good. And I would hope we could have a discussion, should it pass, on the colors before it's actually done. I appreciate what Michael has done, and I know he's trying to keep us in the same colors, but you know, we have enough brown in Goodyear.
Have you looked at the sign in Glendale, the ones that are very thin that go up? They're that color.
Yes, I have that. I've looked at that one, and I brought, I'm sorry, my iPad is sick, and it's in the hospital with the IT department. Otherwise, I would whip up and show you all of the signs I've been taking pictures of, because I've got some beautiful ones.
And can you share what what colors that they've used on those?
Well, one of them, it's a lighter color, and it had a blue, the ends were a darker blue or light, or it's an odd color blue. Almost, it's not that blue that comes out like this. It's a different blue, and then it has a beautiful silver piece. I showed you two, didn't I, Brian? Didn't I? Didn't you see those?
Those are the.
Oops, sorry. It's on, I think.
Those were the ones over in Surprise.
Yep.
Yes, I did see.
I'm sorry, you're not on. I apologize. Sorry.
Councilmember Campbell, yes, those were the ones over in Surprise on the West Course site. Yes, I did see those.
Okay.
We have those back in the office as well.
Okay. But I do agree with you, Mayor, about the sign that's at Wigwam. It's embarrassing because it looks so awful.
Yeah, well,
I almost want to spray paint it or something.
want to go wash it.
Yeah, I know. No, it's a lot
yes,
of spray
Bill?
paint.
As long as we're talking sign colors. I'm just curious, more than anything. The pylon signs that we have in the city have the big Goodyear in yellow on them?
I mean, the monument.
The monument sign.
Monument signs.
Thank you, yeah. I'm curious why we didn't stick with that same theme since we tried so very hard to match the rest. I appreciate it not being a pole, so I mean, I'm very thankful for that. I'm just curious about that giant. I think when you're driving down I-10, I'm hopeful that you know you're in Arizona. So I don't know that we need Goodyear, Arizona on the sign, but a giant Goodyear is, if we're going to use this to our advantage to promote the city, then I'd like to maximize that. So I just throw that out there for some consideration, that's all.
Joanne?
Well, I appreciate the discussion about the signs, even though, as I have here that my thoughts in this idiom, if people put lipstick on a pig, they make superficial or cosmetic changes, hoping that it will make the product more attractive. However, we are also trying to brand our city. And quite frankly, our monument signs and our little center type of sign, they're not signs, but they're little artworks, you know.
Sculptures.
The sculptures, thank you. Shards of metal, whatever you want to call it. They actually are nice, and it shows a theme. And I would have to say that I could choke myself to even have to say I would appreciate that it followed that theme, because we are trying to brand ourselves. And I think that whether you like that art or not, let's stick with the theme. Let's stick with a brand that says this is Goodyear. Now, if the metal isn't going to work because of weathering or whatever, like you're saying of that one monument sign, that's something we need to look at. But I think we need to keep our colors consistent. I would hate to see we now go into blues and silvers when we've been at warm colors and naturalist looking type of things. So I have to put that in. Thanks.
But isn't that blue there?
Molly?
I think that's green.
Well, oh, it's green?
Gray green finish.
Gray green. Okay, I'm sorry. That's how they're proposing it, right? With the color?
Yes, but
Okay.
we're open.
Well, we'll still have time on
we
this.
do.
Yeah, there's
Okay.
time.
All right, you're on for the
I'm
next
done.
slide.
Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you.
Just
No, don't apologize.
Okay.
Public benefits. The first and foremost is the ability to communicate community service
Well,
messages.
you're kind of,
I'm sorry.
pull
Ability,
it over to
community
me.
service messages is by far one of the primary public benefits. Amber Alerts, but beyond Amber Alerts, about 5 years ago across the country, Clear Channel got a letter they shared with me from the FBI, and it's really a very good law enforcement tool that the FBI has been using nationwide to capture criminals, bank robbers, through surveillance tape of in a bank robbery. They're able to take within minutes, or maybe even seconds, take that picture that they get in that surveillance and put it on a clear picture of that individual or suspect on one of these digital marquees, and it's spread all over the Phoenix metropolitan area. In this case, will be Clear Channel, 42 of them throughout the Phoenix metro area with a phone number, who to call, and it's been a very successful law enforcement tool. So the public benefits of it are really good in terms of law enforcement. Then second of all, to market city activities and events. We're allowed, and I'll go over more of the specifics of what we can do with that, but we have dedicated 10 hours per month to advertising city events, and including the ballpark and events at the ballpark. In addition, another 10 hours subject to availability. But and then thirdly, and most importantly, is it's an excellent revenue stream for the city that we're going to get. It's a stable revenue stream that's not going to go away. It's going to be there for 25 years, and it will grow over time because there's a 3% escalator on the monthly fee after the 6th year of the license agreement. So those are the public benefits of having digital marquees.
Bill?
Harvey, each message is up for 8 seconds, I think. Has somebody done the math? How many messages is that in 10 hours?
Well, it'd be, I thought about that. It's an 18-hour day because the digital
Got the
marquees.
calculator.
Yeah, I'm thinking somebody
got-
knows this answer.
It's basically an 18-hour cycle because the digital marquee is going to be turned off at 11 p.m.
Right.
We got roughly from 11 to sunrise. You're talking an 8 seconds every minute, and how many minutes there are, obviously. And,
Yeah, okay, got it.
So we can get.
So no one's done the math,
No,
but
I haven't
okay.
done that. We could get that for you if you'd like.
I have a calculator. Thanks.
Any other questions on that? I will say before you go on that I've had quite a few comments outside of the city from different businesses who are very encouraged by this. And some of our big businesses here have said, I've asked them, would you use the digital sign? And many of them said, yes, we would. So it does fill that gap in trying to increase their businesses in Goodyear. I think that's it. Go ahead and go to the next slide.
And one of the other important aspects that we looked at was driver safety, and there's a lot of external driver distractions out there, and I guess the four big ones that I found in the research, and I think most people would agree, is people searching for street names and addresses while they're driving around. They may be lost. Cell phones, probably the biggest one nowadays is text messaging, and then rubbernecking at crash scenes is probably, those are the big four. And there have been studies, and I can go over more of the studies, that the digital billboards or marquees are not a driver distraction based upon some Federal Highway Administration studies and even studies done by the outdoor lighting or outdoor advertising industry. So there's some things that we can do and that the legislature did this past session that's going to make it safer. And I can go over those in more detail. But one is to control nighttime brightness. And it's limited to 300 nits. And a nit is a measure of the intensity of the brightness of light. And, just to give you an example, a typical LED screen has between 200 to 300 nits, and the legislation that was approved just recently, and I can go over that in more detail, has a maximum limit of 300 nits throughout the valley for all existing and planned or future billboards or marquees, and that's what's been agreed to by Clear Channel, and that's what the law is now throughout Arizona. The time sequence no less than 8 seconds, and then there has to be 2 seconds between messages. The message need to be simple. We try to Clear Channel try to keep them simple, larger font, better for advertising purposes. And then there's a prohibition against any message sequencing. So within that 8-second message, there can't be any changing of messages. No, there can't be any animation. No changing of flipping charts or anything like that within that 8 seconds.
And you do have another slide that's going to cover, I'm trying to see this, and I have my notes here, it's kind of hard. On the observatory, do you
Yes.
cover that in another slide? So if you don't, would you cover that now?
Sure. Mayor, in fact, that was a question. One of the things that held up the license agreement also was there was a court case in the city of Phoenix, a challenge that the city Phoenix Board of Adjustment had approved a digital billboard on, I guess it was the 101, and it was challenged by Scenic America and a kind of a group there, and that went to the court, and in fact the Board of Adjustment won that one and said that it basically digital billboards are not allowed within Arizona because of the Highway Beautification Act. The State Highway Beautification Act, the state adopted one in the early 1970s, didn't anticipate digital technology at the time, so it didn't allow intermediate light so it kind of ruled that no digital marquees or digital billboards were allowed. So the outdoor advertising industry went to the legislature and through a couple of renditions finally came up with a House Bill 2757, we'll go over that, which basically was a compromise with the astronomers that had objected to digital marquees or digital billboards in Arizona because of some existing and planned observatories within rural Arizona, primarily around Flagstaff, Tucson area. And they reached a compromise, and House Bill 2757 represented that compromise. And what it did was it restricts any new or any digital billboards within 75 miles of an existing or planned observatory, which are mostly in rural Arizona, but pretty much allows digital marquees or billboards within the Phoenix metropolitan area, which includes Goodyear, but it put some restrictions on digital billboards. The restrictions were that it limited the light brightness to the 300 nits I talked about earlier. It requires that all digital billboards be turned off at 11 p.m., which ours will be. It also has the messages cannot be less than 8 seconds, and also with the 2-second gap or transition between message ads. So it did some things.
And also animation.
Yes, it does not allow animation.
Okay.
Exactly. So that's what that bill did, and essentially, and it made the astronomers were happy with those limitations and were satisfied with those limitations.
Wally?
Can you tell me, Harvey, who will police the messages? I mean, how are we going to know that they are only 8 seconds and that they do wait 2 seconds? And if they
I know. You're going to see.
I'm sure
Joanne
that
Osborne sitting out
Councilmember
there
Osborne
with her
will do it
timer.
for me, which is super. But seriously, how is this done, and what recourse does the city have should it not be what it's supposed to be? I have a little problem with the trust issue
Okay.
with these big with companies now.
Harvey, do we have a slide on that one?
No.
No. Okay, well, then
sorry.
please.
It's
Well-
just, you know,
That's,
Yeah.
no, excellent question, Mayor, Councilmember Campbell. Clear Channel is going to program the sign to do this. However, the regulatory agency that monitors this is the Arizona Department of Transportation, ADOT. The guidelines, the Federal Highway Administration guidelines on that are monitored by ADOT, and so. In fact, the person that actually does that lives out on the west side and has called us on occasion about some of our on-premise signs. So we know they exist, and they know they look at these things, and so they will monitor those and keep tabs on us and let us know if they're out of compliance.
thank you.
Joanne?
Actually, on that note, the auto digital pylon that's up there, with this new legislation, will they need to change what they're doing because aren't they, no? Are they grandfathered in, or because I feel like they've had somewhat of fast messaging, animation, none of that?
This is the irony about signage, and so we make this distinction is to on-premise signs. So go back to the on-premise signs versus off-premise signs. So what we're talking about is marquees, or AKA billboards. The Autoplex, the one in Avondale, the one in Goodyear, is on-premise. And so they're not regulated by ADOT encourages them to comply with Federal Highway Administration guidelines, but they're not required to unless they get a complaint about it or the sign becomes a hazard, traffic hazard, then they'll take some action. Only on those two cases will ADOT do anything about those signs. So you're absolutely correct. We have, unless the local government puts any controls on those on-premise signs, but those on-premise signs aren't treated the same as off-premise signs.
Follow up to that. So, back on something that was brought up earlier that I was going to touch on, but it was kind of back to the why is it okay for government to have these signs and not private businesses, private landowners, things like that. but also, I'm really wondering, you know, quite frankly, the one that I can see having a case for dispute would be the mall. If I'm not mistaken, they have a third pylon that could be activated. Now, I could see them coming to us and saying, okay, you know what, now that this type of signage is out there, would they be one, I mean, they could be going after some kind of digital sign or one that's even similar to the auto mall then. And so my question is, so things that have been previously already put in place for pylons, they already have, well, they have to, I know for that third one, they have to have so many retailers that are, I don't know, I know there's you know, stipulations to that.
Stipulations.
Right. But at the same time, I could see them bringing the argument that this is the same type of thing as the auto mall would be. Can you address that?
Sure. Vice Mayor, freeway pylon signs now by code can be approved by the council with a use permit and a sign package. So if they don't have the digital technology and they want to convert it to digital technology, they'd come back and amend their sign package, amend their use permit to permit digital technology. There's nothing wrong with that.
So you can
can
turn
do
them
that.
down. You don't, I mean, you can yes or no on that.
Yes.
So do as I say, not as I do.
But I can't imagine that if you've got that digital sign where it is that, that say, an example, Westcor wouldn't put an ad on the digital sign advertising the shopping center. I mean, I'm making this assumption, but it would seem to me the cost probably is worth it. Gary, you had a question? No? All right. All right, let's go on to the next one, please.
Okay. Now, I was just going to give you just a quick summary of the license provisions, and there's a lot more to it, but just it's a 25-year term with a right of termination for any reason after 15 years. That was one question that Councilmember Laurentano had. I thought I would address that. So there are some. So we have, for right of any time after 15 years in the agreement, after the agreement, we can cancel for, I guess, convenience or for any reason, but we would be obligated to refund them a prorated amount of that, the one-time business fee, which is over $500,000 for each sign, as well as the capitalized cost of the sign, the initial construction of the sign. So we would be required to do that. Prior to that 15-year period, the window for the reasons for cancellation are more limited. If federal or state law, for some reason, outlaws these signs, then we obviously can cancel the contract. If Clear Channel is in default, they fail to pay us, if they don't maintain the sign, they don't carry the right insurance, or in any reason they're in default of the license agreement, that would give us a basis to cancel the license agreement. Otherwise, we're pretty much, for the first 15 years, we're locked into the agreement. For the reasons for that is that Clear Channel's making a sizable investment in these structures. These structures can cost up to $750,000 each, plus the site work, improvements, permitting, and the business royalty fees. So they need to amortize their costs, their investment, so they need some time to do that. So that's the reason for having a longer time frame for the agreement.
Councilman Laurentano has just joined us, and just to update you, some of the questions you had sent by email to Harvey, he addressed the answers he gave you. So I just want you to know that that was included in this. Okay. Joanne?
Okay, so say year 16 comes along, or for some reason Clear Channel goes bankrupt or something like that, and we are left with these 80-foot and 60-foot monstrosities. What in our contract? How does it come down? How does it come down? Think about what's over there on, I want to say, I don't know, 93rd Avenue and the freeway, that pylon that is just dissipating. You know, it's just, who's going to take it down?
Okay.
devil's advocate,
That's a
who's
good
going to take it
question.
down,
It-
and
it's-
what's it going to cost?
Vice Mayor, that's an excellent question. First of all, one thing I failed to, Clear Channel is one of the largest outdoor advertising companies in the world. They are in 65 countries. They're in 29 of the 30 major market areas in the city.
They're
I'm
not
just,
too big to fail.
I know they're not too big, but I'm just telling you, I just wanted to give you that they are fairly large. So they've been around, and they all got a lot of experience, been around. But the agreement does provide for if there's a default or if there's they go away, it requires them to remove the sign, or else if they don't remove the sign, we can remove the sign on our property.
It's very similar to the signs that stores left up,
Oh, yeah, I know, and we've
remember?
been stuck with some
and
of that.
so we've had to
What's
either
the
wait
price?
and remove them when the new renter's in.
Yeah. Any idea, guesstimation to take it down?
No, I'd have to get that, to renovate or take the sign down.
20, you'd do it for 20 grand?
You do it for me.
He was kidding, just for the people that are listening.
kidding.
All right, Harvey,
We
go.
did address that.
Wally?
Okay, Harvey, let me, as I explained to you before, I have a concern with the 25-year term, and then, okay, so, did I understand you correctly? Is that we're giving them a 25-year term, and if we terminate for any reason after 15 years, we have to give them back part of the $500,000 they gave us, plus pay for the sign removal?
Mayor, Councilmember Campbell, the second part would be their initial capitalized cost of installing the sign, on a prorated basis.
Okay, so if it's 15 years old, it can't be worth too much. You'd think?
No, it won't probably, because it'd be today's dollars that they're putting it in, it wouldn't be 15 years from now.
Okay, so this,
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. It's a
I'm
10-year.
sorry, what did the lawyer
good.
say?
That's right.
Did you
The
put-
amortization is 10 years, so after the 15th year, presuming they haven't replaced the sign, it should be
it,
gone.
it would be paid for, and we wouldn't have to pay for that, but
That's true.
we would have to give the money back. Okay, and my next question is, after 25 years, what happens? Do they have to come and renew the lease again?
We could renew the lease, we can cancel the lease, we renegotiate the lease.
Okay, thank you.
It's sort of like, the agreement's sort of like some of ours are with the different businesses. There's clawbacks, and that's considered a clawback, so.
Are they
Okay.
normally 25-year, Mayor?
Pardon me?
Are they normally that long, that
Well,
25?
no, not some of ours aren't, but it's a different kind of contract. It's
Seems-
manufacturing companies and commercial warehousing, so it's a whole different, you really can't compare that. Harvey, if you want to go on to the next one?
So Clear Channel's responsible for obtaining all the permits and approvals, and of course, the cost to fabricate, install, operate, and maintain the digital marquees. So they're going to do all that. One of the provisions in the agreement is that we will not allow digital marquees within 1,000 feet on any other city property, with 1,000 feet from the distance from these two digital marquees. And that'll survive the term of the license agreement. The city's responsible for acquiring the access and electrical easements, which we've done. Clear Channel would install the digital marquees within 120 days after receipt of all permits and approvals. They're anxious to do it. They probably can do it quicker than that. They also have a non-binding right of first proposal on the other sites proposed by the city. So if the city identifies another site, we'll give them first shot at giving us a proposal to install a digital marquee at that site. We don't have to take it, but we do have to give them the right to submit a proposal.
Jerry?
And if you've already answered this, I'll listen to the tape. I apologize. But for the 1,000 feet on your last slide, one of these is proposed kind of on the border between us and Avondale. Is there anything in the contract with Clear Channel that they won't put up ours right there and then right across the street in Avondale put one up?
No, I hadn't addressed that, Mayor, Councilmember Larantano. No, there really isn't anything to address that.
Can we put that in there?
On either side.
1,000 feet from, you mean a digital billboard from Avondale's, not a freeway pylon sign?
No, not Avondale, the street, the city of, the city of Avondale, you know, it's just, we're right across the street. What I would hate to see is we put ours up, and then Clear Channel goes right over to Avondale, and that just says 1,000 feet from our property, that we've got two in a row, and then the aesthetic value, that I would be concerned about. Then we start to look a little Vegas-y there.
And Avondale's agreement was special permit only there?
Well, the city of Avondale, the city council, my understanding, they took a tour of the valley. They looked at the digital billboards throughout the valley, and they talked about considering an amendment to allow digital billboards throughout their city, and on I-10, and they decided against it. They decided instead. They decided to allow it on a case-by-case basis by development agreement rather than by code. And so
And
we're talking about just the digital
Yeah,
billboards. We're not
no.
talking about the freeway pylon signs, because they have allowed that their autoplex is a sign that our digital marquee will pale in comparison to their
theirs.
freeway pylon sign. So, anyways,
And just Buckeye area, what are they doing?
they're vetting it right now. They're considering allowing digital billboards on I-10, and they're considering an amendment to their zoning code. They might be doing it.
Bill?
upfront.
Harvey, can we have a discussion with Clear Channel about them imposing a restriction on themselves? I mean, obviously they can't impose it on CBS or Avondale or anybody else, but at least another Clear Channel product within.
Yeah, we can have a discussion with them.
Have the discussion. That's all I'm asking.
Very non-committal look.
I'm
Well,
just asking for the
there's
discussion.
Just from probably from a competition standpoint, it's more likely that you'd have a competing company put one there, because it would dilute their advertising ability to put another sign close to them. That's what they're concerned about, is the city council approving a license to one of their competitors close by that would take away their advertising ability. For them to put another sign close to them is, not as likely. This might just.
Sure, I get that, but I'd like, if we're going to go down this road, I'd like for the city to be in an equal position that we're 25 years, so 15 years into this, a new council says, hey, these are awesome. We need to put a whole bunch of them up. We ought to be able to kind of control that.
I must be dead.
But I think an equal consideration on the city side, I think, would at least be worthy of a discussion.
Okay.
Are you ready to go on the next slide? All right, Harvey.
The financial, just kind of briefly, I have another summary on that. Is there's initial one-time business royalty fee of a little over $500,000 for each sign, plus the monthly rental fee. That's $8,375 a month. Fees are paid after the license is approved and the Bullard Wash access and electrical work is completed, which Clear Channel is funding the $240,000 up front. And then I talked a little bit more about our share is $75,000 of that, the road and electrical service, and that would be deducted from the Bullard Wash rent for the first 10 years of that license, for that particular sign rental.
Any questions?
I have a quick question.
Let me go to Joe first, since he's been very quiet. Joe?
Just a quick comment. On that one-time fee, if the city council chooses to go forward, because we're still kind of not quite certain where all this is going from an economic standpoint, I would like to see that money amortized over 3 years, as far as getting into the budget, so kind of drips in as opposed to, budgeting $500,000. This is more of a comment to the city manager, as opposed to maybe 160 or 170 over 3 years. Get a better stretch for the buck on the, because we're still not quite sure where we're going on that. So just some consideration if the council moves forward on what to do with that $500,000.
Thank you. Wally?
I apologize, Harvey. I should have asked this on the previous slide, but what is the cost to the city to acquire access and electrical easement?
I didn't hear that one, Tony.
Is it the 75,000?
Yes, you mean at
Okay,
the Boulder
thank you.
Washington, yes.
Yeah, the 75,000.
Okay.
It's our contribution towards the electrical and the road work. It's not to acquire the easement. We've acquired the easements and already. It's our property.
Well, then why are we doing it for them? They're the ones that want the sign.
Well, when we initially did the request for interest, we structured the scope of work that we represented to them that we could get access through Snyder's of Hanover or the other property to the west that Evergreen Defco owned. So they based their estimate, everything along those lines, that we could get access. We didn't think it was going to be a problem. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. It was a problem. So we had to expend a considerable amount of time and effort trying to get access from the south, and which increased the cost significantly in this to the half a mile, which is significant. And the maintenance road that they're putting in, is in a location that will be used by the city. For the Bullard Wash improvements, we have a IGA with Maricopa County Flood Control District to jointly fund improvements. This maintenance road will also benefit the city.
So
in the
we
long term,
needed
too.
the maintenance road, whether we do this or not.
Eventually. It won't be completed to the standard that we probably will have ultimately with the Bullard Wash, but at least we get a good base and start with that. So we do get benefit out of it.
Gary? Oh, you're okay? All right.
Talked a little bit more about this. We have a minimum, there's a minimum of 10 hours per month of free city advertising. And one of the stipulations, I want to make sure that council understands that we can't be competing, we can't be using our time and giving it to a profit organization. They're in the business to sell ads, and that's how they make money, and they're going to pay us fees. And so this is for not for city advertising. However, they have extended that out to the ballpark. So if we do have some, for-profit things that are going on at the ballpark, we can include that in the 10 hours of free city advertising. And then we have an additional 10 hours that we could apply that would be subject to space availability depending on whether they sell ads for that. But this is we're only talking about 8-second ads, so this is a lot of time. This is per month. And then emergency messaging would override, would be outside the 10 hours, and that would override all copy for the first hour and go beyond the 11 p.m. if necessary.
Bill?
Just for everyone else's information, the sign will operate for 540 hours, assuming 18 hours a day, and a 30-day month.
Thank you.
We get it for 10. It's about 2% of the time will be our messages, in case anybody was
Very good, thank you.
2%.
Sherry?
And will our 10 hours be throughout, just in the rotation, or will they be assigned certain times?
It's on a cycle.
On the rotation,
It's
the
on a
cycle, so it'll just be
rotation,
within the cycle.
Right.
And we can use our time for nonprofits within the city. That would be permissible? If they have events going on?
That's an excellent question. We haven't fully vetted that with them yet.
I think that'd be, I think that's a good question.
Yeah,
Thank you.
like Arizona in Action, get a helmet for your child, call this number to get a helmet. That's the
Yeah,
type of
I think
messages
that would be, that's probably appropriate. She's not
Is
moving
there
her.
someone here that could?
Yes, she's not moving her head though. Katrin, did you?
Tell her to come up to the microphone, please. Thank you. Doesn't matter, the meeting's following.
This is Katrin DeMarcus. She is the in-house counsel for Clear Channel. We've been working.
Actually, I head up public affairs is my technical role, but I do have a legal law degree
She's
as
a
well.
recovering attorney.
Madam Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council, with respect to the city advertising time, I would need to go back and vet exactly what we're contemplating there. But the thought is that it would be available to the city for city activities, events, causes. So I think within that range, I'm certain we can identify more narrowly or more clearly exactly what we're all in agreement on.
We appreciate that. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And then, as we indicated, the marquees will operate from sunrise to 11 p.m. Oh, anything else? Anything else?
Any
on that?
questions on this one? Bill?
This is probably a ridiculously stupid question, but obviously sunrise changes. Are we talking actual sunrise? So in the winter, it's 7:30 in the morning, but okay.
Yes, it'll be adjusted accordingly. And then illumination will cease after 11 p.m. Except for emergency messages per state law. And as I indicated before, the brightness level will be limited to 300 nits. Messages will be restricted to no less than 8 seconds. There will be 2 seconds transition time between each ad. And then Clear Channel is agreed not to accept or display any advertising for adult or sexually oriented businesses. If there is any other advertising that we find objectionable, we can lodge a complaint with them. They have so many days to respond back to us on any other complaint on advertising.
Any questions? Wally?
My quick question is, your first bullet point, except emergency messages, then are they run throughout the night, 24/7? I mean,
I believe as needed, like an Amber, as
yeah,
needed.
it would be going all the time. Okay.
Any more? And the fiscal impact, beyond the business, I just wanted to clarify, beyond the business royalty fees, the upfront $500,000 for each sign, and the monthly rental, Clear Channel will also be paying construction sales tax, and there'll be taxes on the ads they sell. So there's additional revenue that we will be garnering on this. This is the fiscal impact. Also, on the 6th anniversary of the license, the rental fee will increase 3% annually. And however, on the park and ride facility, the revenue that we obtain from this must be spent on transit costs. It can be on capital costs, it can be ongoing maintenance costs, and it can also be used to match other FTA grants. We have scheduled, I believe, a work session with the council in October to go over, how council wants to fund that. I think the next slide.
Yeah, that was Councilman
If you want me to go
Pizzello's
on the
concern,
next
so-
slide, I just gave some examples of what the money could be used for, and so just the ongoing operation maintenance costs of the park and ride. I think there's a need to install, I guess, a security system, a remote security system at this facility, purchase new buses, expand the bus routes, and even improve the bus bays or put in new bus bays, or implement a local dial ride program. So there's a lot of opportunities to use that revenue, but it can be used for capital or ongoing. Okay.
Wally?
Okay, my question is your comment regarding they collect taxes on the ads. Well, is that tax money going to come to Goodyear because the sign's in Goodyear when Clear Channel doesn't have an office in Goodyear, so they won't be purchasing in Goodyear? How can we get that tax money into our coffers and not into Phoenix or Scottsdale, wherever their headquarters are? Or can we?
Appeal to your legislature, I guess. Just wait. Is this in the same line? Joe?
Yeah, yes.
Oh,
Larry may
oh, I
have the
haven't-
answer to that, but
I know.
it's
He's
my
need to-
understanding we tax advertising, and it's where it's being distributed, so wouldn't we get sales tax for that? I believe I believe we get that money because of where
Larry,
the
can
signs
you
are.
come up and address that, please? Appreciate it. Wally, I think this is going to, Wally, I think this is
you.
going to address it.
Yeah, I would agree with Councilman Pizzillo. My recollection on the Model City Tax Code is it's where the advertising is taking place, and since it's in Goodyear, that would be where it's subject to the taxation.
And
I
I
can
see the
have
Clear
our,
Channel people nodding their
yeah,
head back there.
I can have our sales tax auditor research that to be 100% sure, but I'm about 90% confident on that.
Oh, may I ask you a question, Larry, please? Is that going to cost the city, or will our staff have to monitor that?
No different than we would any other business.
Okay, so is there a cost incurred on our?
No, there is not.
Okay, thank you.
Sherry?
I'll follow up on Wally's question there. If these are fully utilized, what would the tax to Goodyear, what are we looking at? Or estimate, or what do your other signs bring in for sales tax? I guess I'd like to know.
It would seem to me that we could get some estimate from Clear Channel from some of the other cities. Maybe they could furnish that information to us. I don't know, it'd be a guesstimate, okay?
fine.
I don't know if it'd be estimate, with more of a guesstimate, but she's nodding her head, yes, that information. Oh, come up, please come up, yes. Thank you.
Thanks. Just to clarify, I guess it depends on what the sales tax rate is in Goodyear. Do we have that? And I'd be happy to provide an estimate.
Okay,
All
thank
right,
you.
great. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So that answers both of your questions?
I
Okay.
have one more question.
Go ahead, Wally.
Okay, I have one more question, please. Regarding on the 6th anniversary of the license, the rental fee would be increased by 3% annually. Who came up with the 6th anniversary? Why not isn't it every year, or starting with the 2nd year or the 3rd year? Why 6?
I think
Does
that's
the
just,
lawyer
we negotiated that, and I think that's where we wound up, because I think we wanted the first year.
Yeah, me too.
And, yeah, me too. And I think they were farther out, it was a negotiated date. I don't think there's a better answer
It's just
than that.
odd.
That's how
Because-
negotiations go sometimes, yes.
Yeah.
It's, they're here and we're there, and
Well, was that going to be a deal breaker? I mean, I just can't believe that we agreed to 6.
Well, I
I
think
don't
we
think the
can,
original deal had a multiplier in there.
Not
That
at
was
all?
something
Okay.
we negotiated, that we wanted an annual escalator, because
Yeah,
that
sure.
was not in the first deal.
Okay.
So that was certainly something we pushed for.
Okay.
And following our push on that, it was where do you arrive as far as when that date becomes effective. So like I said, there's several elements to that negotiation, starting from no escalator to picking the date where the escalator kicks in. So
Okay.
that's kind of how it went.
Okay, I've had a few conversations with a couple of other cities that they do have that escalator, and I just wondered how we came up with 6. Okay, thanks.
so I want to clarify that. You had it with the other cities, and what was their date? How many?
Well, some of them, it's just different. They're talking, but they're not talking 6, but they're not with Clear Channel.
Oh, okay, well, then that's different.
So
Okay,
It's different, but
yeah, it's different
I mean,
because,
everybody is putting in an escalator because it's only fair if they're going to put it in there, you know?
okay. All right, next.
Okay. Very similar numbers for Bullard Wash, except for, as I indicated, the $75,000 that comes off the first 10 years of the rental payments, but the 3% annual increase also applies.
Any questions on this one? Thank you.
And then the cumulative fiscal impact.
You're fading out again.
I'm sorry, the cumulative fiscal impact, the summary is before you. So the one for Bullard Wash is a little bit lower because of the $75,000 cost.
Any questions?
Now, just to complete I think I touched on some of the, Councilman Laurentano had several questions. I think we already addressed the contract length. I think I already addressed that about the 25-year term. I think we already talked about that. We talked about Avondale and Buckeye, what they're up to about digital billboards. I talked a little bit about that already. And then Councilman Laurentano asked about the latest study on safety, and found that she asked what's more. She found a 2000 study. Asked, was there anything more recent? There was a Federal Highway Administration traffic study that was recently done. It was done in the 2009-2010 range. It was actually an empirical in-car study that measured the length of time the driver, glances at a digital billboard when they're driving by, and they found that was about 1.28 seconds. And what they found was that 2 seconds is the threshold that needed to be met to avoid crashes. And anything less than 2,000 increases the likelihood of a crash. So this particular research by the Federal Highway Administration hasn't been released publicly, but there was a Freedom of Information Act request, and they were required to submit a summary of the information. And so we obtained that, but well, we didn't obtain it, but they obtained it, and I'm telling you what the results are. And the new state law that I talked about earlier, HB 2757, limits the 2 seconds transition. So I think the research that we have from the Federal Highway Administration shows that they are not a driver distraction, and there's not a correlation between an increased number of crashes and digital billboards.
Any other questions? Well, Harvey, I'd just like to thank you. I thought the research was really well done. I think it answered whether, and I'm not sure where this council is at all on how they're going to vote on this, but I just think that all the questions were answered, and I appreciate the staff taking the time to do such a thorough job on it. I think I still have a question here. Joanne?
Oh, I have no questions. I have comments, but I'll wait until somebody else has comments made. Gary? Thought he did.
So I'm sorry, I didn't realize there were still more comments and questions. So you're on. Who would like to go? Gary?
I'll make a comment. This has been a long time coming. I remember working on this when I was chairman of the Planning Commission several years ago. The Highway Administration rights took a long time. The lack of cooperation of some of our local businesses on granting easements also took time. However, I look at this as a total win for the city, and I will be supporting it, and if you can find more of them, go get them.
Joanne?
On that note,
Yeah, I guess so.
yeah, first of all, I'm going to give my comments tonight because some of you were not here when years ago when this first originally began, and I just want to let you know some of the feelings. I mean, I know you know Joanne's against them, but some of the reasons why, and I want you to know that I'm not a fool not to see that there are benefits. Granted, there's revenue here, and there's opportunity for some kind of public, I don't want to say advertisement, but just what Sherry was talking about, information that could be obtained that's important. I do know that we already do have freeway signs that if there are crashes or there's sweepers or there's, those things are listed there. So I will not say that there's absolutely nothing to these, because there are. I did have to laugh that they were talking about nits, because that's also an egg of lice. And so I thought that was kind of funny correlation. But I just wanted to let you guys know that, when this originally came, this discussion, the council at the time had regionally, with other cities, come to a great, I don't want to say, they came together and were able to bring the I-10 enlargement.
Oh, you're talking about the collaboration.
The widening, thank you. The collaborations, the widening
Operation of the widening of the I-10.
Because they saw that safety was an issue. And I reminded the council back then that you're taking a step backwards because I still feel they're unsafe. Granted, you looked at items that were, texting and cell phones. We have distractions constantly with us. There's no doubt. This is just adding to that perfect storm. That is my opinion on it. And so I hate to see that our city takes a backward motion of not saying that safety comes first of any citizen, whether it's a Goodyear citizen or anyone that's driving down our freeways. So that's one of my biggest and things that I'm against. And I even stated before that over my potentially dead body on the I-10, would I ever vote for this? And it's how I feel. I also think that I'm concerned for the future. I'm concerned about we take this motion and I look at the 303. I look at other potential sites that this could be. I know Gary, is all for them, but they concern me. And, I would really like to see our city say that, you know what, let's set ourselves apart. Let's say no to this. Let's say that, you know what, we have set a higher bar for the way that our city looks, and we've even stated that we have a dark sky ordinance, and I just say, let's not go down that road. But lastly, I'm going to say to you, as a business owner in this city for 16 years, and as a retailer, somebody that, of course, wants signage that says, hey, I'm open, shop, come to my business. I understand that. Every business owner wants to have their name in lights and wants to have marketing for them. Granted. Now, myself, I think I'd far rather use my imagination and other marketing talents than just having in-your-face signage. And so, that's me as a business owner telling you, I would rather have an aesthetically pleasing, quality city and a standard and a bar that is set higher for our city that I believe we have than allowing those digital billboards. That is my last.
Thank you, Joanne.
Thank you.
Jerry?
I'm in the middle of the two of you. I don't know if that's a good thing or not. I'm going to get hit one way or the other over here.
You're my teammate. I would never hit you.
Oh, wait, it's going to come. For where these two signs are placed, I think it was thoughtfully placed out where they are. I don't agree that bring more on. I don't want to see them on the 303. You have Pebble Creek right there. You have residential. These are not in residential areas. The one near the park and ride is right by Avondale. My concern is, though, honestly, if we don't do it, they're going to go across the street to Avondale to Walmart, and it'll be put up right across the street. So whether it's on one side of Dysart Road or the other side of Dysart Road, when you're driving the freeway, you're not going to be able to tell. That one doesn't bother me. I'm taking each sign individually. The other one is going to be really near to where the mall is. It's going to be the mall area. I'm okay with that. I would not agree to one at the 303. Like I said, there's residential there. That freeway already, and I know the people at Pebble Creek knew the freeway was going in, but as I see them build that so close, I wouldn't want to see signage because that community could see it from their backyard. So that's one of the things, is how close is the residential to me. As to the safety issue, as I'm up late last night working, I'm looking and I'm seeing a new car that's coming out that has basically an iPad touch screen. All these cars are going to touch screens, to that, that's going in there. And I know they're looking at distracted driving right now. Someone was, texting. If we're very concerned about this, just on another note, we should be looking at a no texting ordinance in Goodyear, because obviously texting, as you text a message, you can travel 200 feet because you take your eyes off the road. I would say that is different, dealing with, distracted driving and being very familiar with NHTSA standards on drunk driving and what they're looking at for the divided attention. When you drive a vehicle, the idea is that you are able to focus on things around, including billboards, with your peripheral vision, with your vision, which is different than a texting where you take it off. You are physically taking your eyes off of the road. When you're driving with a billboard, you should be able to maintain on the road. I think there are a lot of positives with this. We can use it for the city. We can use it for events, not just sporting events, but for our public information. So I am supportive of this. I am very concerned. My biggest concern is that 25-year lease. I would like to be very clear. I would like an earlier out with a less of a penalty. Technology is changing so fast. when some of these studies came up, there weren't digital billboards. I mean, this wasn't available. This is outdated today. This is a new phone, but it's outdated. You know, next week technology is outdated. That is my biggest concern, is that if technology changes, I mean, we're talking about cars that can drive without drivers now that they're developing in my lifetime. So as this changes and the advertising changes, they're talking about types of advertising where your car will be programmed and your advertising will show up in your car programmed for you specifically. There's so much out there that I would like to see some sort of out early, that if we needed to terminate it. That's where my comments. But I do support the 2 signs, but don't be bringing them back all over the neighborhood, because I wouldn't support that.
Any other comments?
I just have a request of Harvey. I happen to be a tour person, and I'm sorry that we, as a council, were not toured around to look at these signs. The decision to do the signs were made before I came on council and before Council Member Stipp was on. Council Member Gelser was in the thick of it because he was on planning and zoning. I would like to know where there's Clear Channel has their signs, because I would like to go look at them on my own. If you can get me a list of where they are and their locations, I would appreciate it. Sure. Thank you.
Joe?
Just a quick comment. We talk about safety. I have a tendency with Councilmember Loretano texting. I mean, I ride all the time, and I'm on 2 wheels at times. I'm telling you, I see people in the car on phones, texting. You can tell who they are. They're the slowest ones, and they seem to be not oblivious to what's going on around them. I think that's a much bigger issue. But we're always looking for ways to reduce our tax base, and food's one of them. Here's $100,000 on one of them that can help replace that income as we start to wean ourselves off of some of the taxes. So I see some value in putting it. And then we have the advertising income, and I suspect that's going to be substantial because it's going to be 2.5 on their gross. So as that comes in too, that will help us replace some of that income and be able to lower, you know, some of these other taxes we want to do. So I see some value in there.
Anybody else? I just want to thank you, Sherry. I particularly liked your explanation. I agree with you. When this came before, I was against the 3rd location, and we talked about it, and I said, you know, I could go for 2 because I did drive the area, and I have continually driven the area to see visually how I think it would affect our city. I'm having a tendency to go towards voting for this. I haven't made my final decision yet. I really like the idea, and you're part of the reason that I'm hesitating is the 25-year. And I would like to see that there be a possibility of cutting some of those years off, understanding their side of it also. You know, it is a deal, it's a business deal. And so I don't know where, and I see the city manager is raising his hand, so I'm going to turn it over to you now.
Yes, Mayor, members of the council, just real quickly, there were several things talked about tonight. I wanted to just go through some of the areas of follow-up, just to make sure that we're all on the same page. One is there was a lot of discussion about the sign, the materials, the Core 10, and those are things that we can certainly look at. Obviously, we're not going to be coming up with a design here, but we'll look at alternatives for consideration and really how we go about that approval process. The other is what's the cost of sign removal? That came up just in the event, so we know what that is, eyes wide open when we go into this. So we'll come up with the general cost estimates or range. There was a comment, and if there's no disagreement, let me know, because I'm taking this as consensus. Add 1,000 feet from the Goodyear sign and that's reciprocal. So they're not putting signs within 1,000 feet of their own. They can't control other providers. And then conversely, we'll do the same thing. I heard that come up. There was a comment looking at bringing in the revenues perhaps over a 3-year period instead of upfront. Certainly we can look at the implications of that, what that might mean.
Just for clarification, that's internally. I'm not saying change the $500,000 up front. I'm saying internally how we use it.
Internally, yes, and how that could be treated. There's going to be follow-up by Clear Channel on nonprofit use of signs, so that will come from the provider. They'll get that back to us. They'll be providing us with rental tax estimates as well, and they'll be working with our finance department. And this is one I didn't hear clear consensus, but looking at a earlier out, less than the 25 years, it's certainly something. I'm not sure where that's at in terms of the negotiation, how that might be treated.
We've had a lot of discussion on that. We spent a lot of time on outs, certainly from the beginning, a city position that we have an automatic right or a termination right at any point. What you see is kind of a negotiated agreement, and again, negotiation is going to take a life of their own, and there's competing interests. If council wants to see a shorter term, I think the deal is probably going to look differently. But and from a staff perspective, 25 years is a long time, and we understand that. If there is a shorter term you want us to discuss with a Clear Channel, it gives you more comfort if you can give us some guidance on what that term is. Whether it be 15 years, probably 15 is kind of, I would guess, a breaking point. So if that's something you want us to have discussions and see if we can work a deal on that, we'll have that discussion. But if council has in mind something shorter, I don't want to go down that path and then later realize you had something shorter in mind. So if you want to give me a little direction on what you'd like us to go back and to the bargaining table and see what we can come back with, realizing they're very strongly advocating 25 years, I'd like a little direction on what that is.
Joe?
Well, it's my understanding it's 15 is your early out, right? So it's a 15-year, but with penalties if you get out before 25.
Right.
So I think, first of all, what that difference is between the 15 and the 25, because it looks like you can get out in 15. It's just going to cost you a little bit. My concern, and again, I don't want to negotiate here in a work session, but is the upfront. I mean, I'm sure your upfront's going to look different if you negotiate that. I mean, that's...
It definitely will.
Yeah, so-
You're talking the upfront and
That
the
might
monthly.
be the,
Yeah.
that might be you're right.
But I don't want to give you any more than that just because I don't want to do it here.
Something less than 25 is what
Yes,
you'd like to see.
I think that's kind of general,
Understood.
that you go back with less than 25.
Gotcha.
Thank you. Anything else? Well, first of all, I want to thank council. I thought it was a great discussion. I don't think we left anything unturned. So, whatever the final vote is, I think you've all had the opportunity to express yourself. So I really thank you. And Jerry, thank you so hard for getting here. I know you were in court and it was very difficult for you, so I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm going to give you a break. Let me tell you what we do. We advertised that the next meeting would follow our meeting here. So before I adjourn, let's say, just give me a feel about how much break you'd like. 10 minutes? Okay, say so 20 minutes. So what we're going to do, that would be, where are we in there? Can somebody read the clock? 6:40. Thank you. You know I had drops put in my eyes, so I'm not seeing very well. So with that, I'm going to adjourn this meeting, and at 6:40 we will begin the regular meeting. Meeting adjourned.